When Emma burst through the back door of Thunder Custom Motorcycles at 2:47 a.m., blood trickling from her split lip and terror driving her bare feet across cold concrete, she had no idea she'd just stumbled into the private sanctuary of the most feared man in Phoenix. The workshop was shrouded in darkness, but emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across rows of pristine Harley-Davidsons in various stages of restoration. Emma pressed herself against the door, chest heaving, listening for sounds of pursuit while trying to process how her life had collapsed so completely in the span of 3 hours. Heavy footsteps echoed from somewhere deeper in the shop. Emma's blood turned to ice. If Derek had followed her here, if he'd found her hiding place, she was trapped with nowhere left to run. But the voice that cut through the darkness wasn't her ex-boyfriend's familiar sneer. "Shop's closed, sweetheart. You lost?" The man who emerged from the shadows was nothing like what Emma expected from the rough neighborhood bike shop she'd chosen as refuge. Tall, powerfully built, with dark hair and eyes the color of midnight storms, he moved with the controlled grace of someone comfortable with violence, but disciplined enough to choose when to unleash it. Emma should have run. Every rational thought screamed that she'd escaped one dangerous man, only to stumble into the territory of someone infinitely more deadly. Instead, she found herself looking into eyes that held surprising gentleness beneath their predatory intelligence. "Please," Emma whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't call the police. I just need somewhere to hide for a few hours." He studied her with an intensity that should have been frightening, but somehow wasn't. Those storm-dark eyes catalogued every detail, the bruising around her throat, the tear in her dress where Derek had grabbed her, the way she held her left wrist like it might be sprained. "Who did this to you?" His voice went deadly quiet. "It doesn't matter. He'll get tired of looking, and it matters to me." The man stepped closer, and Emma caught sight of the leather vest hanging on a nearby workbench. Even in the dim light, she could make out the distinctive patches. Hell's Angels Phoenix chapter, and below that a single word that made her stomach clench: President. If you love forbidden love stories, subscribe and don't miss the next one. "What's your name?" he asked, pulling a first aid kit from behind the counter. "Emma." The word came out barely above a whisper. "I'm Kane." He approached slowly, hands visible, like someone accustomed to dealing with wounded, frightened creatures. "Can I take a look at that lip?" 6 hours earlier, Emma's biggest concern had been whether to accept Derek's marriage proposal. They'd been dating for 8 months, and while his jealousy and need for control had grown increasingly suffocating, she'd convinced herself it came from love rather than something darker. The proposal dinner had started perfectly. Expensive restaurant champagne, Derek playing the charming boyfriend he could be when he wanted something. But when Emma asked for time to think about his proposal, his mask had slipped completely. "Time to think." Derek's voice had turned cold as winter steel. "What's there to think about? Unless you've been fucking someone else." The accusation had come from nowhere, but Emma recognized the pattern. Derek's jealousy had been escalating for months. Accusations about her co-workers, demands to check her phone, isolation from friends he deemed inappropriate influences. Tonight it had erupted into something she could no longer rationalize or excuse. "Derek, that's not... Don't lie to me." He'd grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave marks that would last for days. "I saw you talking to that mechanic when you got your car serviced last week. Saw how you looked at him." Emma hadn't even remembered the interaction Derek referenced, but that didn't matter to his increasingly paranoid worldview. What followed was 3 hours of psychological torture, disguised as conversation. Derek systematically destroying her confidence, while making threats that grew progressively more detailed and violent. She'd escaped only when Derek passed out drunk on his expensive leather couch, grabbing nothing but her purse and running barefoot into the Phoenix night. The bike shop had been the first place with an unlocked door, a desperate choice that now felt like destiny. "He's my ex-boyfriend," Emma said as Kane gently cleaned the blood from her lip with surprising tenderness. "Was my boyfriend until tonight. He doesn't like when I make my own decisions." "What kind of decisions?" "Like saying no to his marriage proposal." Kane's jaw clenched, and Emma caught a glimpse of the man who commanded respect from the most dangerous motorcycle club in Arizona. How long has he been hurting you? He doesn't... I mean, tonight was the first time he actually... Emma trailed off, recognizing the lie even as she spoke it. Derek had been hurting her for months, just not with his fists. Emotional abuse is still abuse, Kane said quietly, his voice carrying knowledge that came from experience rather than textbooks. And men who start with psychological torture always escalate to physical violence. You were right to run. The understanding in his voice broke something loose in Emma's chest. For months, she'd questioned her own perception, wondering if Derek's behavior was normal relationship stress or something more sinister. Having this dangerous stranger validate her fears felt like permission to trust her own instincts again. I don't have anywhere to go, Emma admitted, the weight of her situation crashing over her like a tidal wave. Derek knows where I work, where I live, where my family lives. He has friends in the police department. He's made it very clear that leaving him isn't an option. Kane finished tending to her injuries and stepped back, studying her with an expression that suggested he was making calculations about risks and resources. What does he do for work? Corporate lawyer. His father owns the firm. They have money, connections, influence. Emma's voice grew smaller as she listed Derek's advantages. I'm a kindergarten teacher who can barely afford rent. I can't fight him legally, and I can't outrun him financially. You don't have to outrun him, Kane said, his voice carrying absolute certainty. You just have to outlast him. Before Emma could ask what that meant, the sound of car doors slamming in the parking lot made both of them freeze. Through the shop's front windows, headlights cut through the darkness as 3 vehicles surrounded the building. Shit, Kane muttered, moving toward his gun safe with fluid efficiency. Your ex just became everyone's problem. How did he find me? Probably tracking your phone. Kane tossed Emma a helmet and keys to the motorcycle nearest the back exit. Can you ride? Not really, but learn fast. When I say go, you take that bike and you don't stop until you reach the address I'm about to give you. Emma's hands shook as she gripped the motorcycle keys. What about you? Kane's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I'm going to have a conversation with your ex-boyfriend about appropriate ways to treat women, as Derek's voice echoed from the parking lot, drunk, angry, and demanding that Emma come out to face the consequences of her disrespect. Emma realized she was about to discover whether escaping one dangerous man was worth trusting her life to another. The Hells Angels president who'd found her bleeding in his workshop was either her salvation or her destruction. In 30 seconds, she'd find out which. Kane moved with lethal purpose toward the front of the shop. His transformation from gentle caretaker to apex predator, happening so smoothly it took Emma's breath away. This was a man who'd built his reputation on violence when violence was necessary, but had chosen tenderness when tenderness was what she needed. Outside, Derek's threats grew more specific, more violent, more revealing of the monster he'd kept hidden beneath his polished exterior. Emma understood that whatever happened in the next few minutes would determine whether she spent the rest of her life running from a man who viewed her as property, or whether she'd finally found someone willing to stand between her and the darkness that had been consuming her piece by piece. As Kane reached for the door handle, Emma made a decision that would change everything. Instead of running, she followed him toward the confrontation that would either end her nightmare or transform it into something entirely different. Behind them, the motorcycle keys felt heavy in her palm. Escape route or false promise she wouldn't know until the shooting started. The confrontation in Thunder Custom Motorcycles' parking lot lasted exactly 4 minutes and ended with Derek Thornton face down on asphalt, zip-tied hands behind his back, while Kane explained the new rules of reality with the patient tone of someone accustomed to teaching hard lessons to slow learners. Derek, right? Kane crouched beside Emma's ex-boyfriend, his voice conversational despite the 3 men flanking him with weapons visible. I'm Kane Riker. I own this shop and you just threatened a woman under my protection. This is kidnapping, Derek sputtered, his lawyer training kicking in despite his obvious intoxication. I'll have you arrested for protecting a domestic violence victim. Kane's tone remained pleasant, But Emma could see the predator lurking beneath his controlled exterior. I'm sure that'll look great in the Phoenix Business Journal when they report on how Thornton and Associates' golden boy got caught beating women. Derek's face went white as he recognized the threat. His father's law firm built its reputation on representing upstanding corporate clients. A domestic violence scandal would destroy everything Derek had worked toward, everything his family's money and connections had built. Emma's lying. She's unstable, manipulative. Kane's boot pressed against Derek's throat, cutting off the familiar list of accusations Emma had heard for months. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in your car, drive home, and never contact Emma again. No calls, no texts, no showing up at her workplace. You're going to pretend she never existed. And if I don't, then I'm going to show you why corporate lawyers shouldn't threaten women in Hell's Angels territory. Emma watched the exchange with fascination and growing relief. For 8 months, Derek had controlled every aspect of their relationship through psychological manipulation, making her believe she was too weak, too stupid, too dependent to survive without him. Now, watching him reduced to a whimpering mess on the ground by a man who actually understood power, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Safety. Kane's brothers. She could see the family resemblance in their coordinated movements. Their instant response to his authority cut Derek's restraints and watched him stumble toward his Mercedes with the careful attention of predators evaluating prey. Only when Derek's taillights disappeared into the Phoenix night did Kane turn back to Emma. "You can ride that thing?" asked Reaper, Kane's massive lieutenant, studying Emma with professional curiosity. "Not yet," Emma admitted, still straddling the motorcycle Kane had given her, helmet in her hands. "But I'm motivated to learn." Kane's laugh was surprised and genuine. Most people would be halfway to the county line by now. Most people probably haven't spent the last 8 months being told they're too weak and stupid to survive on their own. Emma met his eyes steadily, finding courage she'd forgotten she possessed. "I'm tired of running scared from men who think they own me. Even when the man is a Hell's Angels president, especially then." The words came out braver than Emma felt. But something in Kane's expression suggested he appreciated honesty over false bravado. Reaper cleared his throat, his massive frame blocking out the parking lot's security lighting. "Boss, we got that shipment coming in at dawn. Might want to move this conversation somewhere more private." Kane nodded, understanding passing between the two men in the shorthand of long partnership. "Your phone." "What?" "Derek found you somehow, probably GPS tracking. Give me your phone." Emma handed over her iPhone, watching as Kane removed the battery and SIM card with practiced efficiency. The device that had been her lifeline to the world became just another way Derek could hunt her. "What now?" "Now you come with us until we figure out how to keep Derek from killing you." Kane swung onto his Harley, the machine roaring to life beneath him like a caged predator given freedom. "Unless you'd rather take your chances on your own." Looking at the empty parking lot, where Derek had just threatened to destroy her life, Emma realized her choices had been reduced to trusting dangerous strangers or facing certain destruction alone. It wasn't really a choice at all. "Where are we going?" she asked, climbing onto the back of Kane's bike. "Somewhere Derek's money and connections can't reach." The ride to the Hells Angels compound took 20 minutes through Phoenix's industrial district, past warehouses and shipping yards that looked abandoned, but probably concealed more activity than they revealed. Emma had never been on a motorcycle before, but pressed against Kane's broad back, his leather vest warm under her palms, she found herself understanding the appeal. There was freedom in the speed, in the wind that whipped her hair, and the engine's roar that drowned out rational thought. For the first time in months, she wasn't calculating Derek's mood, wasn't weighing her words to avoid triggering his jealousy. She was just Emma, riding through the night with a dangerous man who'd offered protection without demanding anything in return. The compound was smaller than she'd expected, a fortified building surrounded by high fences and security cameras, but clearly designed for function rather than intimidation. The architecture spoke of prosperity, earned rather than inherited, of men who'd built something lasting through discipline and brotherhood. rather than family connections and inherited privilege. Inside, Emma found herself in what looked more like a professional office than the stereotypical biker clubhouse she'd imagined from movies and television. Clean lines, modern equipment, the kind of organizational efficiency that spoke of serious business conducted with military precision. "Not what you expected?" Kane asked, noticing her surprise as she took in the conference room, the computer workstations, the wall of monitors displaying security feeds from around the compound. "I thought there'd be more," Emma gestured vaguely. "Leather, chains, and naked women." Reaper grinned, showing gold teeth that somehow made his scarred face more approachable rather than more intimidating. "That's Hollywood bullshit. We're a business organization." "What kind of business?" "The kind that keeps neighborhoods safe when the police won't," Kane said, leading her toward a staircase that climbed to the building's second level. Security, protection, problem-solving for people who fall through the legal system's cracks. Emma understood she was seeing behind the curtain of an organization most people only knew through sensationalized media reports. These weren't the mindless criminals she'd expected, but disciplined professionals who'd found purpose outside society's conventional structures. "Why are you helping me?" Emma asked as Kane led her to a small apartment above the main building. "Because men like Derek think money and connections make them untouchable. They use the system to hurt people who can't fight back." Kane's expression darkened with memories Emma could only guess at. "I've seen what happens when no one stops them. And you stop them." "When I can." The apartment was sparse but meticulously clean, clearly maintained as safe housing for people in Emma's situation. A bed with military-precise corners, a kitchenette stocked with basic necessities, blackout curtains that would provide complete privacy from the outside world. As Kane showed her the basic amenities, secure communications, emergency procedures, the panic button that would bring armed backup in 30 seconds, Emma found herself studying his profile, trying to reconcile the gentle caretaker with the man who'd reduced Derek to terrified compliance in minutes. "Kane," she said, as he prepared to leave her alone for the night, "what you did tonight, was that legal?" "Probably not." "Are you going to get in trouble for helping me?" Kane paused in the doorway, his dark eyes holding depth she couldn't read. "Emma, I've been in trouble with someone since I was 16 years old. Adding your ex-boyfriend to that list doesn't even register as a blip." "And your brothers? The club?" "They understand that some things are more important than staying out of trouble. Protecting innocent people from predators is one of those things." After he left, Emma sat on the narrow bed and tried to process everything that had happened. 12 hours ago, she'd been considering Derek's marriage proposal, believing his jealousy and control came from love rather than pathology. Now she was under the protection of the Hells Angels, hiding from a man who'd promised to destroy her life for daring to say no. She should have been terrified, but instead, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope that tomorrow might be different than today. Hope that there were still people in the world who would stand between predators and their prey without demanding payment or submission in return. Outside her window, she could hear the rumble of motorcycles and the low murmur of men planning something she probably didn't want to know about. But for the first time since she'd started dating Derek, Emma fell asleep without checking the locks on her door twice, without lying awake cataloging every sound that might signal his approach. In the morning, she would learn that accepting Kane's protection meant entering a world where violence and tenderness coexisted, where loyalty was earned through actions rather than demanded through manipulation, and where a kindergarten teacher could find strength she'd never known she possessed. But first, she had to survive the night and discover whether the dangerous man who'd saved her was everything he appeared to be, or something else entirely. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through reinforced windows and the distant sound of motorcycle engines being tuned in the compound's garage. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back like a physical blow. Derek's threats, her desperate escape, Kane's unexpected protection. A soft knock interrupted her disorientation. "Emma, it's Kane. You decent?" "Come in," Kane entered carrying coffee and department store bags, his dark hair still damp from a shower. In daylight, without crisis adrenaline, Emma could see him more clearly. The laugh lines around his eyes, the careful way he moved to avoid startling her. The intelligence beneath his dangerous exterior. "Figured you might want something clean to wear," he said, setting the bags down. "And breakfast is ready when you are." The clothes fit perfectly. Jeans, a soft sweater, even underwear and shoes in exactly her size. The thoughtfulness made Emma's chest tighten with emotion she wasn't ready to name. "How did you know my sizes?" Kane's smile was slightly embarrassed. "Asked my brother's girlfriend. Turns out women are better at estimating that stuff." Downstairs, the compound's kitchen bustled with organized activity. Men in leather vests moved with purpose, preparing what looked like a feast. Emma recognized Reaper, but other faces were new. Younger men who nodded respectfully when Kane introduced her as a friend under club protection. "Sit," Kane commanded, guiding her to a table. "Tiny's cooking, and refusing his food is considered a mortal insult." Tiny turned out to be a massive man with gentle eyes, who studied Emma with professional interest. "You're too skinny. That boyfriend doesn't feed you right." "Ex-boyfriend," Emma corrected automatically. "Good. Men who don't take care of their women don't deserve to keep them." The casual acceptance felt both liberating and terrifying. Emma had spent 8 months believing Derek's threats were omnipresent. Here they felt distant and manageable. "What happens now?" Emma asked as Kane sat across from her. "Now you tell me what Derek knows about your routines, your friends, places you might go." Emma listed the depressingly small inventory of her life. Work at Sunshine Elementary, grocery shopping every Sunday, yoga classes Derek had recently forbidden. The pattern painted systematic isolation that made Kane's jaw clench with anger. "He's been cutting you off from support systems," Kane observed. "Classic abuser tactic." "It worked. I don't have anywhere to go, anyone to call." "You have us now?" Over the next 3 days, Emma settled into the compound's rhythms with surprising ease. The men treated her with respectful distance, clearly following Kane's unspoken orders. She helped Tiny cook, learned motorcycle maintenance from Reaper, discovered that the Hells Angels' reputation for violence was balanced by unexpected gentleness toward family. Kane was never far away, but gave her space to process without pressure. Emma caught him watching her sometimes, when she laughed at Reaper's stories, when she successfully changed oil, when she fell asleep reading. His attention felt different from Derek's possessive surveillance. Kane seemed interested in who she was, rather than controlling who she might become. "You're different here," Kane said one evening as they shared coffee on the compound's roof, phoenix lights spreading below them. "Different how?" "Stronger. More yourself, maybe." Kane studied her profile. "Like you're remembering who you were before someone convinced you to be smaller." The observation hit deeper than expected. "I used to think I was brave before Derek. I traveled alone, took risks, stood up for myself. What changed?" "He did. Slowly, carefully, piece by piece. Convinced me my instincts were wrong, that I was too naive to understand how dangerous the world really was." Emma's voice grew bitter. "Turned out the most dangerous thing in my world was him." Kane reached across space between their chairs, his fingers covering hers. "He lied to you. About the world, about yourself, about what you deserve." "How do you know?" "Because I've watched you for 3 days. You're not weak or naive. You're a teacher who broke free from an abuser and trusted a motorcycle club president to keep you safe. That takes serious courage." The contact between their hands felt electric, charged with possibility neither was ready to acknowledge. Emma understood that whatever was growing between her and Kane went beyond gratitude. "Kane," she said softly, "what happens when this is over? When Derek stops being a threat?" "I don't know, but I want to find out." Before Emma could respond, Kane's phone shattered the moment with emergency buzzing. His expression shifted instantly from gentle suitor to dangerous predator. "What is it?" "My lieutenant. Derek's not giving up." Kane's expression hardened as he read. "He's hired private security to find you, Professional mercenaries, not street thugs. Mercenaries. The word came out strangled. Ex-military contractors. They hit your apartment an hour ago, then your school. They're working through every location you've mentioned. Emma's blood turned to ice. How long before they find this place? Not long enough. Kane's phone buzzed again, especially since one just called asking questions about motorcycle shops that take midnight visitors. As sirens began wailing in the distance, Emma realized that trusting the Hells Angels president might have saved her from Derek's immediate violence, but delivered her into a war that could destroy everyone she'd grown to care about. Kane's protection had given her 3 days of safety and genuine happiness. Now she had to discover whether their growing connection could survive the collision between love and loyalty, between the world she'd fled and the world that had welcomed her. The private military contractor Derek had hired wasn't some street-level thug. Marcus Steele, former Navy SEAL turned corporate security specialist, commanded ex-military professionals who'd found profitable employment, protecting wealthy clients' interests through methods that existed in legal gray areas. Emma learned this from FBI agent Sarah Chen, who'd taken over her case after Derek's escalation triggered federal attention. Derek Thornton's father has connections throughout Arizona's legal system, Chen explained during an emergency meeting at the compound. When local police wouldn't treat this as kidnapping, which is how Derek's portraying your disappearance, Daddy made calls. Now you're officially a federal missing person case. Kane's expression remained neutral, but Emma could see calculation in his dark eyes. What does that mean for Emma's safety? It means Derek's mercenaries have legal cover to search for her, and it means the Hells Angels are harboring a federal missing person, which gives us justification to raid this compound. The threat was clear but not immediate. Chen seemed more interested in solving Emma's problem than arresting Kane's organization, but federal involvement complicated everything. There's more, Chen continued. Derek's claiming Emma stole proprietary documents from his law firm, corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets. He's building a case that would put her in federal prison for 20 years. Emma's stomach clenched. I never had access to... Doesn't matter. With his connections and willingness to fabricate evidence, Derek can make charges stick long enough to destroy your life. Chen's expression softened. Unless we can prove he's been systematically abusing you. What kind of evidence? Kane asked. Medical records showing injuries, police reports, witness statements. Chen looked at Emma. Do you have any of that? Emma shook her head. Derek had been too smart to leave obvious evidence, and she'd been too ashamed to seek help. He never hit me until the night I came here. I never called police. Then we're back to square one. Derek has money, connections, and legal strategy designed to make you disappear. The Hells Angels have... Chen gestured around the compound. This, Kane's jaw clenched. We have resources too. Not the kind that work in federal court. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. Emma was safe on the compound, but Derek's mercenaries were tightening their search. Federal agents would eventually act on the missing person case. Emma couldn't hide forever, without destroying everyone who'd protected her. That night, unable to sleep, Emma found Kane in the garage, working on his Harley with methodical precision. You should turn me in, Emma said. Kane's hand stilled. That's not happening. Be realistic. Derek's willing to destroy your organization to get to me. How many brothers will you sacrifice for someone you've known less than a week? All of them, if necessary. Kane's voice was utterly certain. When we take someone under protection, it's permanent. Even when protecting me destroys everything you've built. Kane set down his tools and faced her fully. The Marcus King they want doesn't exist anymore. He died when I saw you in that shop. What's left is a man who'd burn the world to keep you safe. The declaration terrified Emma because she understood the cost. Kane was offering to sacrifice his identity, his family, his entire world. Show me, Emma said suddenly. Show you what? Your world. The real one. Before you destroy it for me. I want to understand what I'm costing you. Kane studied her for a long moment. It's not pretty, Emma. It's violence and loyalty and brotherhood forged in blood. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I need to know who you really are. After a moment, Kane nodded. Get dressed. We're going to church. The Hells Angels clubhouse occupied a fortified compound, surrounded by razor wire and cameras. Emma had expected something crude. Instead, she found well-maintained facilities that spoke of organization and surprising prosperity. The men who greeted them carried themselves with military precision, despite leather vests and tattoos. These weren't stereotypical outlaws. They were professionals who'd chosen to operate outside society's rules while maintaining rigid codes. "Brothers!" Kane addressed assembled members, his voice carrying absolute authority. "You know why we're here. The feds are circling. Decisions need to be made." Reaper stepped forward. "Steele's been our president 8 years. Never led us wrong. Never compromised our values. If he says this woman needs protection, we protect her." Murmurs of agreement rippled through assembled angels. Emma watched Kane's face as he absorbed their loyalty, seeing the weight of responsibility that came with absolute trust. "There's more," Kane said. "Protecting Emma means war with Derek's mercenaries and federal government. Some of you have families, legitimate businesses. No shame in walking away." Not one man moved toward the exit. Later, as Kane showed her the compound's legitimate operations, garage, security company, charity work, Emma began understanding the complexity of his world. This wasn't just a motorcycle club, but a shadow corporation with businesses and loyalty networks spanning the country. "You built this," she said as they stood in Kane's office. "My father started it. I kept it growing." Kane's voice carried pride. "Every man out there has a story. Veterans the VA abandoned, kids who aged out of foster care, men who made mistakes and couldn't find forgiveness. We give them purpose. And now you're going to give it up? I'm going to save it the only way I can." Before Kane could explain, alarms blared throughout the compound. Federal agents in tactical gear surrounded the facility, megaphones demanding surrender. "FBI, federal raid, everyone on the ground." Kane moved toward his gun safe, but Emma caught his arm. "Don't, please. They're here for me. Everything I built ends here. Not if you surrender peacefully. They'll put me in a cage. Better alive in prison than dead on the ground." Kane looked at her, seeing something that made his resistance crumble. "You're asking me to trust the system that failed both of us. I'm asking you to trust me." Through windows, they could see agents positioning for assault. Kane's brothers were looking to him for orders that would determine whether the next minutes ended in surrender or bloodbath. As gunfire erupted from the compound's perimeter, Derek's mercenaries using the federal raid as cover, Emma realized they were trapped in a three-way battle that would decide everyone's fate. Chaos erupted as federal agents, Hells Angels, and Derek's mercenaries engaged in a three-way battle that transformed the compound into a war zone. Kane grabbed Emma's hand, pulling her toward his office's reinforced safe room as bullets shattered windows and automatic weapons fire echoed across the facility. "Stay down," Kane commanded, pushing her behind his desk while grabbing an AR-15. "Don't move until I come back." "Where are you going?" "To end this." Kane's eyes had gone cold as winter steel. "Derek's mercenaries used the federal raid as cover. Now they're trapped between my brothers and the FBI." Through bulletproof windows, Emma watched Kane coordinate his club's defense with military precision. Despite being outnumbered by federal agents and under assault by mercenaries, the Hells Angels fought with disciplined efficiency that spoke of extensive training and absolute trust in their leadership. But Emma could see the inevitable outcome. The federal task force had come prepared for war, and Derek's mercenaries had given them perfect justification to use overwhelming force. The brotherhood Kane had built over 8 years was about to be crushed. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Emma Chen?" The voice was crisp, professional, federal. "Who is this?" "Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI. We need to talk." "I'm not talking to anyone without—" "Your protection is in federal custody, along with most of his organization. But there's still a way out that doesn't end with everyone dead." Emma's blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "5 minutes. Come to the front entrance, hands visible. No weapons, no tricks. The line went dead. Through windows, Emma could see federal agents tightening their perimeter as Derek's mercenaries surrendered or retreated. Kane was directing his brother's final stand from the compound's central building. She understood this was the moment everything fell apart. Whatever choice she made would determine whether Kane lived or died, whether his brotherhood survived or was destroyed. Emma left Kane's office and walked through the compound toward the front entrance. Brothers who'd accepted her as family watched her pass, some with confusion, others with growing understanding of what she was about to do. Agent Torres was younger than her voice suggested, early 30s with intelligent brown eyes and an expression suggesting she'd developed genuine empathy alongside professional detachment. "Miss Chen," Torres said as Emma approached, "thank you for coming. What do you want?" "Kane's cooperation. Full disclosure of Hell's Angels operations, financial records, connections. In exchange, witness protection for both of you and reduced sentences for brothers not involved in violence. And if he refuses, life in federal prison, organization dissolved, assets seized, every member charged under RICO." Torres gestured toward the compound. "Everything he built destroyed. Why offer this deal to me instead of him?" Torres smiled grimly. "Because you've become his weakness. Kane, the Hell's Angels president, would never flip on his brothers, but the man who'd burn the world to protect you? He might make different choices." The honesty was brutal and accurate. Emma held power to save or destroy everyone she'd come to care about. "I want to see him. He's in federal custody. The only way you see him again is if he takes the deal." Emma understood the system's logic, but logic felt inadequate against Kane's sacrifice. He'd known consequences when he'd chosen to help her, but he'd done it because it was right. "Give me 5 minutes to convince him." Torres studied her. "You love him more than I thought possible. Enough to ask him to betray everything he believes in? Enough to save his life even if he hates me for it." The transport vehicle holding Kane was armored and heavily guarded. Torres kept her word. 5 minutes alone with the man who'd become her world, knowing it might be their last conversation. Kane sat with hands zip-tied, grey eyes blazing with fury when he saw her. Blood from a cut above his eyebrow had dried on his face, but his presence still commanded respect, even in defeat. "They hurt you." His first words were concern for her welfare. "No, Kane, listen. They're offering a deal. I know what they're offering. 20 years of brotherhood for witness protection with someone I've known 6 days. Aren't I worth it?" The question hung between them like a blade. Kane's expression softened as he looked at her. "Yeah," he admitted, "you are." "Then take the deal. Please. You're asking me to destroy 20 families. Men who trusted me, followed me, would die for me. I'm asking you to live. Choose a future over the past. With you, if you want it." Kane was quiet, studying her face like he was memorizing details. "What kind of life would that be, hiding from who we really are?" "I don't know, but we'd be alive to figure it out." Through the vehicle's windows, Torres was approaching. Kane's decision would reshape both their lives and determine his brother's fate. "Sophia," Kane said softly, "if I do this, betray everything I've been for something I've never had, and it doesn't work, then at least you'll be alive to regret it." Kane laughed despite their circumstances. "You're going to be the death of me." "Not today," Emma whispered, pressing her forehead against his through the window. "Today I'm going to be the reason you live." When Torres opened the door, Kane looked up with eyes that had made peace with impossible choice. "I'll take your deal, but I want guarantees for my brothers. Reduced sentences, protection in custody, and Reaper gets immunity." Torres nodded. "Done." As federal agents prepared to transport them separately for processing, Emma caught Kane's eyes one last time. They'd saved each other, but the price was everything they'd held dear. Now they had to discover if love could survive the collision between impossible worlds. 6 months in federal custody felt like 6 years. Emma had been held outside Denver, while Kane was processed in California. Their only contact-monitored phone calls that revealed nothing about feelings and everything about desperation to see each other again. The witness protection briefing took place in a sterile conference room. Agent Torres sat across from Emma, manila folders containing their new identities spread between them. "Sarah Mitchell," Torres said, sliding a license across the table. "24. From Portland. You'll work as a librarian in Montana. Clean background, no criminal associations." Emma studied the photograph, her face but somehow different, defeated. This woman had never fallen in love with a dangerous man, never discovered courage under fire. "What about Kane?" "Michael Stevens, construction foreman 200 miles from you. His testimony dismantled 3 motorcycle clubs. The prosecutor considers him one of the most successful cooperating witnesses in organized crime history." The clinical description made Emma's chest tighten. Kane had betrayed everything, destroyed relationships that sustained him for decades. "Can we see each other?" Torres hesitated. "Witness protection works best with clean breaks from the past, including relationships formed during criminal activities." "Our relationship wasn't criminal. It was born from criminal circumstances. The relationship represents connection to his former life that could compromise safety." Emma felt new existence's walls closing in. "So we saved each other for nothing. You saved lives. Whether you can save your relationship depends on choices you both make." The choice came sooner than expected. 3 days before relocation, Torres appeared with news. "The Serpent's leadership was arrested last night. Immediate threat to both of you has been neutralized." "What does that mean?" "You have options beyond witness protection. Marshals prefer you disappear, but legally, you're free to choose." "I want to see him." "I figured." Torres held up keys. "He's at a safe house in Boulder. 1 hour, then you decide. New lives apart, or face consequences of staying connected." The drive through Colorado mountains felt like traveling between worlds. Emma had spent 6 months learning to be Sarah Mitchell, practicing manufactured history that felt like wearing clothes that didn't fit. Kane was waiting on the porch when she arrived, seeing him hit like physical blow. He looked older, harder, worn down by months of betraying everything sacred. Storm gray eyes that had captivated her now carried shadows of choices that couldn't be undone. "Emma." Her name sounded like prayer and curse combined. "Marcus." She climbed steps slowly, afraid moving too fast might shatter fragile reality. "You look different," he said, studying her face. "Federal custody will do that." She gestured toward his appearance. Clean-shaven, shorter hair, construction clothes. "You too." "Sometimes I don't recognize myself." They stood 3 feet apart, separated by distance that felt infinite and non-existent simultaneously. 6 months of longing hung between them. "Was it worth it?" Emma asked. "Destroying everything you built?" Kane was quiet, eyes never leaving her face. "Ask me in 50 years. We might not have 50 years. Torres says staying together means living with targets forever. And living apart means dying inside while pretending to be people we're not. The honesty was brutal and necessary. They'd both sacrificed everything for love's possibility, but possibility wasn't guarantee. "I have a proposal," Kane said, stepping closer. "Not witness protection, not fake identities, not hiding from who we are." "What then?" "We disappear together. International, off-grid. Start over where everyone who wants to use us can't find us." Kane's voice gained strength. "I've got money in accounts they don't know about. Enough to live anywhere in the world. As fugitives, as free people who refuse to let others' choices define our future." The proposal was insane, romantic, terrifying, perfect. Emma thought of her father's words, everything worth keeping had scars. She and Kane were both scarred. But maybe scars made them strong enough to survive anything. "Where would we go?" "Anywhere you want. New Zealand, Costa Rica, Switzerland. Somewhere we can figure out who we are when not running from who we used to be." "And if they find us?" Kane smiled, the first genuine joy she'd seen since the federal raid. "Then we run again, together." Approaching vehicles interrupted. federal marshals arriving for final processing. This was it. Irreversible choice between manufactured safety and authentic love. "Emma," Kane said urgently, extending his hand, "trust me one more time." Looking at his outstretched hand, Emma saw their entire future balanced on her decision. Federal agents would offer separate lives free from danger, but empty of meaning. Or they could run together into uncertainty that promised nothing except the chance to discover who they could become. She took his hand. "Let's go," Emma said, following Kane toward the garage where a motorcycle waited. Not his familiar Harley, but new machine representing new possibilities. As they disappeared into Colorado wilderness, with federal sirens wailing behind them, Emma realized she'd finally learned the difference between being saved and saving herself. Kane had rescued her from the bike shop, but choosing him over safety was her own act of rebellion. Behind them, old lives crumbled into federal evidence files. Ahead lay everything they'd never dared dream possible. 2 years later, the small cafe overlooking Lake Como served the best espresso in northern Italy, according to locals who'd frequented Marco and Sophia's establishment since the American couple appeared with enough cash to buy the struggling business outright. Emma, now Sophia, moved through the morning rush with confidence unrecognizable from the terrified woman zip-tied in Derek's psychological prison. Her Italian improved daily, helped by Kane's surprising fluency, learned during childhood with his immigrant grandmother. "Buongiorno, Signora Benedetti," Emma called to their regular customer, an elderly widow who came for cappuccino and village gossip. "The usual?" "Si, cara mia. And tell me, when will you and Marco give this town something to really talk about?" The woman gestured toward Emma's bare ring finger. "When he asks properly," Emma replied in careful Italian, earning approving laughter. Kane emerged from the kitchen carrying fresh pastries, movement still carrying controlled power, now channeled into creating perfect cornetti instead of commanding motorcycle clubs. The transformation amazed her. This man who'd once inspired fear across Arizona now charmed elderly Italian women with careful pronunciation and willingness to listen. "Any news?" Emma asked quietly during afternoon lull. Kane shook his head, checking the encrypted phone they used to monitor American sources. Torres sent an update. Serpent's leadership still in federal custody. Remaining Angels chapters went completely legitimate. Construction, security, motorcycle repair, no criminal activity. "Do you miss it?" The question came out before Emma could stop herself. Kane considered seriously, as always. "I miss the brotherhood, sense of purpose, belonging to something bigger." He gestured toward the cafe where regulars chatted about local politics. "But I've found those things here too, differently. And the power, the respect. Signora Benedetti respects my ability to remember her cappuccino preferences. The teenager who helps with deliveries looks up to me because I taught him motorcycle safety. It's different, but real." Their new life wasn't without challenges. Kane's past ensured law enforcement would always watch carefully. Emma's work required Kane's protection skills regularly. They lived with security measures most couples never considered. But they also lived knowing they'd chosen each other over safety, love over convenience, authentic connection over social acceptability. "Emma," Kane said as desert stars emerged, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd never run into that bike shop?" "Every day." Emma leaned against his shoulder. "I'd probably still be teaching kindergarten, avoiding Derek's calls, pretending emotional abuse wasn't really abuse. You'd have figured it out eventually. You're too strong to stay broken." "Maybe, but I wouldn't have learned what love was supposed to feel like, what protection without possession looked like, what it meant to be valued for who I was instead of controlled." Kane turned to face her, storm gray eyes reflecting the same intensity that had captivated her in that warehouse parking lot. "You taught me things too." "Like what?" "Like the difference between being feared and respected. What it means to choose someone over everything else you thought mattered." Kane's smile was soft. "How to love without trying to own." Desert wind carried sage scents and possibilities as Emma realized how far they'd traveled from who they'd been. She was no longer the frightened teacher who'd believed she deserved Derek's torture. Kane was no longer the president who'd defined himself through violent loyalty. They were two people who'd found each other across impossible circumstances and discovered love could survive collision between radically different worlds. "Kane," Emma said softly, "no regrets?" "Only one." "What?" "That it took Derek nearly destroying you for me to understand what I'd been missing." Kane's phone buzzed with a message from one of Emma's domestic violence clients, a woman whose ex-husband had violated restraining orders and was threatening murder rather than accept divorce. "Work calls," Emma said, recognizing the pattern. Together, always together. They descended from their sanctuary into a world that would never be entirely safe, but had become entirely theirs. Outside, Como glittered with lights of people living complicated stories of love and loss, power and vulnerability, choices that defined who they became versus who they'd been. Emma and Kane had chosen each other, and everything that choice entailed. The price had been everything they'd thought they wanted. The promise had proved worth everything they'd risked. In the distance, thunder rumbled across Italian lakes, promising storms that would test foundations and leave them stronger when skies cleared. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and stay for the next ride. They'd paid the price for forbidden love, and the promise had proved worth every sacrifice.